I'm very proud of my short course work because I can hang with them. And I think it's giving me a lot to realize, or a lot to think about long courses. How can I get my breaststroke to come along so that my 4IM breaststroke or 4IM long course can start contending with the guys that I'm training with.
Welcome to Social Kick. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a partial crew. Luke's still in Trinidad, but we got Dr. John Mullen, and joining us fresh off some blazing swims, Rex Maurer. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, well, we always ask our audience at Social Kick Swim on Instagram and on YouTube for questions for our guests. And so we had a few that we thought were kind of interesting. One is, this one's from Mag Howe, asked us, do you have different goggles for meets and practice, and what are they?
I usually do. I usually open a new pair of goggles at the meet, and then I use those for practice until my next meet. But no, I always wear the Speedo Vanquisher, I think 2.0s. I always wear those practice or meet.
What's the color you'd prefer?
I think I was wearing the black ones at midseason, but I usually wear like the multicolored ones, the reddish hue ones.
All right, fair play. Okay. This one's kind of interesting, and you're one of the people whose ratio is going to be way out of whack on this, but this one's from our pal Neophyto Shero. Wanted to know, what's your time in the mile on the track, and is your 500 free faster, which I'm going to assume is, but now I'm curious, how fast can you run a mile?
Don't assume. Maybe he's a 3-minute miler. Come on now.
No, I probably haven't run a mile since I was in middle school. I think that's probably good for my ego. I don't really think that would be a very good one. I think I ran a little bit on vacation this year, but I would guess my 500 free is far faster than my mile.
Do you know anybody on the Texas men's team or women's team, I suppose, but a swimmer whose mile on the track would be faster than their 500 freestyle?
I know Kobe Carrozza's brother ran at Texas, and I know that he used to run as a kid, but his 500 free is also fast enough where I think he would have a hard time breaking that in a mile. I think maybe some of our sprinters, their 500 free would be rough. So I think maybe they could get around the track, but I would guess most people, their 500 free would be better.
All right. Fair enough. I like that. And I think that's probably true. Sprinters are the low hanging fruit on that one. But now I want to see this challenge. I want to see people comparing times. Cause I think for me right now today, they're probably about the same. I think I could go about the same thing in a mile on the track as I could a 500 freestyle. Maybe around that 5-minute mark. We'll see. All right. Here's another one from Brandon Stout 23 said, what's your favorite off event to swim besides your main events?
My favorite off event to swim, I would like to say, I'm afraid to say the 50 free. I'm afraid to call the 50 free an off event, but I love the 50 free. But I'm unwilling to call that an off event for me. So I will say my favorite off event to swim is the 100 breast. I like doing the long pull downs, and I feel like I swim it so little times that I usually go best time when I swim it.
So right, 50 free is a main event. You're going to do that day one of NCs over the 500. You heard it here first.
That'll be a hard sell, but I guess the dream can still live on.
There you go.
How about this? 10 50s in a row. How about those?
Yeah, I think that'll be more like it.
What's better than 150? 10 50.
10 of them. Give me 10 of them. All right. This one's from C. Mosterman. Wants to know, what's your favorite pump up or walkout song?
My favorite pump up song. Let's see. I switch it up. I usually listen to like calming music. I don't usually like listening to hype up music, but I'm a big fan of Veritas Quo by Daft Punk.
Ah, there you go. Okay. I like that one. And then this last one from KP4P squared says, what's next? So, dude, you just came off of a big in-season invite, which was crazy, but obviously big gains so far at Texas, probably aligned with what you had envisioned. Back to the grind. What are you up to?
Yeah, I mean, so I got to go home for Thanksgiving. Just about the week after we left Tuesday, we had practice on Tuesday, and then got to go home after that. So we had a few more practices after midseason because ours ended on Friday. So we had about 4 practices, I guess, after midseason, and then I got to go home, get some good rest, and Bob made sure that we stayed in the water at home. So I stayed in the water, and now we're right back to it. We've been hitting it hard this week so far, and we have the Georgia dual meet coming up. I think in about 15 days.
Okay, I have to ask because when I used to go home during college, they would do. Sometimes we would weigh in before and after, and maybe not. There was like a caliper test involved to keep those Thanksgiving and Christmas meals in check. So, how does Bob make sure you're staying in the water when you're traveling for Thanksgiving?
I think he said, "I'll know if you don't swim," which I think that alone is scary enough to prevent most of us from not swimming. But he says he'll know. I mean, I think all of us did swim, so I don't think it ended up being a problem.
But not everyone is going home, and their mom's a college coach. For those that don't know, Lee Maurer, the USC head men's and women's coach. Your brother Luke is, I think, a 5th year, or 6th, or 7th, or 8th. Who can keep track of these years anymore on the team? So I guess what's it like going back, and are you training with that team, or how does that go?
Yeah, since I've been back in college, when I'm back, I try to train mostly with my mom. Especially now that Luke's there, we trained together in high school, so I always love training with him. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit harder to get out of the sets or skip warm up. I think it's easy to do that with your club. You're catching up with your club coach. Oh, I'll skip the first 500 or so, maybe even 1,000. So when I'm back home, it's definitely. I think Bob is very confident that I'm getting work in, just because of who my mom is. But I try to stop by back at Rose Bowl at least once or twice when I'm back home. But definitely I'm getting the main work at USC.
And I think every younger sibling has that moment. I remember mine, and I have an older sister. When I passed her in her best event, like the 200 fly. Do you have any training moments where you're like, man, I finally got Luke on this training set, or this moment when you feel like you're making that next step?
Yeah. Well, so this was probably when we were seniors in high school. So when we were seniors in high school in Illinois, we still lived in Illinois, and you have to swim with your high school team. Like you can't train with your club team at all. And so there weren't as many good. Like we had a very good high school team, and there's 2 of my best friends. They swim at Navy right now, and so it was us 4 plus this other guy, pretty much in these 3 lanes on the side, and they would give us more of the more serious workouts. And Luke, when he gets tired, he gets really tired, especially like when he gets beaten down. So I remember we were doing an aerobic set, and he was way out ahead of me, and he completely blew up, and I ended up going past him and having a really good set. And I think I probably had a good set because I was like, oh, wow, I'm beating Luke right now. Like, this is great. And that I definitely remember that as the first time that I really, really got to beat him. And at Stanford, we didn't really get to train with each other that much. I was definitely more in the more distance oriented, and he was in the sprint stuff. But we definitely like to train together, but definitely chirp each other as well when training.
Which of you is the favorite?
Oh, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, I think they're pretty good at keeping their cards close to. Both my parents are good at keeping their cards close to their hand or close to their chest. So it's hard for me to guess.
Yeah, I can imagine growing up in a swimming-based household. There's enough nerding out about swimming. How often was it that swimming went home with you guys, or was there a pretty good separation between sport and home life?
Yeah, that's funny that you say that because especially when we were like younger kids, growing up, like people would go up to my mom and my dad and be like, like what are you guys doing? Like, what are you guys feeding them for dinner? What's the secret? And my mom would always just laugh and say like, oh, there's no secret, or she would tell them like what they were like we made this for dinner, and they're like, all right, and then the people are always like, fine, don't tell us the secret. And I think that is one of the special things about my family is we are very involved in swimming, and all of us have had very great careers in swimming. But when we're home, we're not thinking about it. Of course, whatever, if something crazy happens, you got to talk about it. You got to say, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? But you know. I think we definitely have great separation on home and swimming life.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that. People have been asking that your whole life because we got tons of questions from our Instagram audience asking about food. What's your cheat meal? What do you eat before pre-race? What's your snack that's in your swim bag? Everybody wants to know, are you eating? What are you eating? Why are you eating that?
Yeah.
Any of those stand out? Do you have a cheat meal, by the way?
I don't know if I have a cheat meal per se. I definitely do have a pre-meet meal. I'm a really big fan of chicken parm before I swim.
Whoa.
I've always loved that before I swim.
Like the night before or
Carb
like
load,
the
yeah.
morning before the session?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the night before. I probably until I got to college, I would religiously do that.
Man, I kind of like that. John, did you ever have a cheat meal or a pre-race meal?
No, but I had a pretty consistent like breakfast. It was like some yogurt and banana and a muffin, just like very stable that I knew would go okay with me. But as far as dinners go, or like big pre-meat things, none that stand out other than like a random spaghetti dinner for high school season, things like that.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I used to have this like the catered breakfast never really sat well for me,
Yeah.
especially at big meets. And there's like always
Hmm.
kind of like, I mean, they had eggs and fruit, but and
Hmm.
then like maybe some sausage or potatoes or I don't know. It's just like I couldn't eat all that before, and so I had this tradition. We had NCAA's at Minnesota twice during my college career. And it didn't matter where the meet was, but I just remember there was a really good one in Minnesota. I would walk to the Brugger's Bagels and get a bagel sandwich. Like that was something that sat really well, and it was like a nice solo time for me to like get outside, go for a walk, get some food. Um, do you have any other Rex like kind of things that you love to do around a big meet that are kind of just for you?
Before I answer that, it's just funny that you say that. I know exactly what you're talking about. They just add water eggs from a hotel. By the time you get to the end of like a big
Oh
That's
yeah.
right.
Just looking at
those
them, you're like,
those are
"Ooh."
like you feel like it's harder than your race to eat those before you swim.
That's right.
But before meets, I think my favorite thing to do honestly is to do something that's not related to swimming. I think that's definitely something that I would do like when I was younger, and I realized like as I've gone to like faster meets is like although it's like nice to like you feel like, oh, I'm on taper, like I should just sit in my room and do nothing. I've realized it's so bad for me to just think about swimming and think and sit in my room for like a day or two before I swim. So I usually try and whatever, think of something fun to do. I remember like when I went to junior pan packs, my going into my senior year of high school that summer, they let us go to like the beach, and obviously you're not trying to go to the beach for a super long time, but I'm a big fan of the ocean. I got to like ride a few waves, go in the ocean, Hawaii. And that was something that I really enjoyed. I'm trying to think of like at other meets I've gone to recently, like even at Olympic trials. Like I think I just went to like a 3 hour lunch with my dad just to whatever catch up with him, kill some time, get out of the room. So I would say just getting out of the room is probably the thing I do at every meet.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, speaking of meets, you just obviously crushed it. There was a path to get to the point where you are, but I guess we'll start with what's your reaction to the performances that you had mid-season?
I'm super proud of, all of my performances at midseason. Obviously the 500 free was amazing. Having a 7-second drop in about a day is, that's like my high school coach joked me is like, I'm back on my age group days. That's definitely something I haven't done in a long time. So I was super proud of that. 4 IM was obviously great. Mile, I hadn't swam it in 2 years, and it was super, super exciting to try that one again, even though I was definitely a little bit nervous about it. And then, 2 back and 2 free as well. Also really big drops. So, I think overall, I think, it makes me feel happy about, my transition to Texas has been going great, and it's really exciting to see results paying off so quickly. But, I think it's also just a great moment to realize, how much work I've put in the years leading up to this that, definitely that I was able to build on top of in these past few months that allowed me to really, explode in midseason.
Yeah, I think that's a huge statement. They always say it's like putting money in the bank and you don't know when you're going to cash out, right? And sometimes it happens a few years down the line. So clearly, it's not everything what you've just done the last few months, but the years leading up to it. But we've had a lot of questions about kind of training and how things have been going at Texas. And believe you even won a personal best in the 500 at the IU dual meet. So clearly things were trending in the right direction even before this meet. But do any sets stand out that you were like, man, I'm really in the groove, or I'm hitting times or doing things that are setting me up for success right now?
Yeah, yeah. Here, I'll look at my phone. We have like people send the sets after every single day, and I have a few of them saved.
We don't want any Hoobie hungry sets anymore. Okay?
Oh yeah,
enough of that book that he pulled out of like torture times in Hungary.
I know the Hubie sets it like if every practice was 10,000 yards, Hubie would be like the best practice. I mean, when he is super long, he can just fly. It's insane. Let's see.
Do you want to race him in a mile backstroke? What do you think?
Mile backstroke, I would get demolished. Hold on, sorry, the lights went off. Let's see. This was like a color set we did, and this was 4 200s white on 220, and then 8 100s pink on 110, and then 24 50s red, 4 free on 35, and 4 fly back on 40. So that one is real tough. I think especially when we start throwing in the IM into our color sets, those definitely like spike your heart rate pretty harshly. So that's like one that definitely I feel like gives me confidence. I think Carson had talked to you about the Janet Evans set we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one definitely, I was like in like maybe our first month here, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's see. One of like the like ones that really stands out in my mind. This was alumni weekend and a recruiting weekend. It was 1050s. 4 were all out, odds off the blocks, evens from a push on 130, right into 650s that were like probably like 200 pace ish. On the first, it was this, and we did this round. We did this twice. We did this 2 rounds. The first round was, I think maybe all the 50s were on 50, and then the second round 2 was on 50, 2 was on 55, 2 were on a minute. And that was one that was just absolutely brutal, but I definitely swam really well on, and we had all these like Texas legends on deck. So I think all of us felt like, all right, we got to step it up a little.
Hey everybody, quick pause to say thank you for watching and listening to Social Kick. If you like this episode, give it a like. And if you like what we're all about, consider giving us a follow or subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, at Social Kick Swim. You know what to do. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we'll keep telling all the stories about swimming. Cheers. Yeah. Have you felt like that on a daily basis on the whole? I mean, you stepped into an epic freestyle group, and and then you had the great joy of one-upping Carson after he breaks an American record in the same session. But we put out a reel with a lot, sharing a lot of what we heard from your and training partners from David Johnson to Luke Hobson to Carson talking about like what an epic freestyle group it is. You step right into it and assert yourself as one of, if not like the dominant, trainer or like getting your hand on the wall. So, did you feel any sort of new guy pressure and stepping up to the plate as you've asserted yourself into this training environment?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely intimidating stepping into, a group, with, whatever, 3 Olympians, like you said, plus, add in, whatever, Kobe and the rest of the mid distance free guys we have. It's really intimidating. But they were all super welcoming and supportive. It's not like whatever, when I started, really training well, they were like, oh, like this guy, or like they were happy for me. I mean, especially Carson's like very vocal in practice, saying, come on, let's go, whether he's winning or losing, he's very good at being motivating. And, after practice or after the set ends, we all say, nice job, like good job. Or like, if there was a super outstanding time, we're like, wow, like, did you see that? Like, that was amazing. So I think we're all really complimentary with each other. And, I think, we know that, each day is going to be different. Each day is going to be tough. Who knows who's going to, come out on top that day. But I think we know that whatever, by all of us training hard and being together, we're all getting better. So, I think there's an obvious benefit of us all being together. And I think, as long as we're keeping the same positive attitude of, good job and, really staying, not getting like angry or anything about like losing in that workout, I think, we'll continue to succeed as a group.
Other than the training sets and the athletes that you're training with, any other training surprises that, I don't know, kind of caught you off guard of training at Texas or with Bob?
I think one of the things that definitely was a big difference for me is I'm doing way more volume than I had ever done. And surprisingly, I still have a lot of speed and more speed than I've felt that I've had. I usually in high school and my freshman year, I felt like I really had to taper to get my speed. And I don't know exactly what I'm doing with Bob and how I'm increasing volume and keeping my speed up. I think maybe it's just because we're going fast very, very consistently. Even on whatever aerobic day, like you're still hitting red, or you're always kind of you're having small hits, usually at least once a workout. And so I think, with the increased volume, I was definitely nervous coming in and being like, oh, how will I respond? I've never really trained to this, intensity or like whatever, to this volume. And I think being able to, realizing that, my body can handle this and my body is, thriving under that increase, has definitely just, increased my confidence.
Has there been a day that you walked on deck and something got written on the board and you're like scared or intimidated?
Yeah, definitely intimidated and scared. I think we kind of, like, I remember we have, so like our morning practices, like some of us have 8 a.m. classes and our morning practice starts at 6. And so, you kind of hoping that it's going to be around an hour 30 so that you can have time to go get breakfast and really, make sure that you get breakfast and can get to class on time. And I remember it was an 8K and I was like, uh-oh. 8K, it's going to be a little bit close on the clock. And it was, I had never done, like, I think I had done a 10K as like a New Year's set in high school, but I had never done like an 8K, just like, oh, this is Wednesday morning, we're doing an 8K. And I'd never done that. And I was definitely nervous for that one. And whatever, I got through it and we think we got through it in an hour and 35 minutes or something ridiculous. And I was like, oh my God, did we just like not stop? So I think, the longer stuff is definitely intimidating to me, but I mean, you always get nervous on whatever the super long, like the set I gave, like those 2050s fast, like you're always like, oh my God, am I going to blow up? But I'm usually pretty good at not exploding and whatever, popping a 40 point on a 50 fast.
I don't think that that's in your future at any point. But I think it was Carson who was telling us about how like one of the biggest adjustments is that it's like Bob's really efficient with time, and the time between sets creates such a big difference. So like, his someone else's 8K in 2 hours might be Bob's 8K in an hour and 40, because there's just less dead time in between sets and you're doing fast equipment changes and all of that. Like, have you found that to be the case? And what's that
For sure
like?
Yeah, no, that has definitely been a big adjustment, especially, I mean, I swam for Eddie for not that long, but especially coming off Eddie. Eddie was famous for, sometimes telling a story, sometimes telling you to go right away, but, it was in between, and you usually got whatever 2 or 3 minutes, but especially before a main set or like to put gear on. Bob, he loves to have you take all your gear out of your bag before practice starts. So he makes sure that you read the set, because he hates when people are like wrestling with their gear bag on the wall. And so by setting all of our gear up, it makes it so that we can get it on quicker. And you'll finish on a 40 and they'll say on the top, and you're trying to get your paddles on, trying to get your buoy on, even they're trying to get your ankle band on. You're like trying to get everything on, and they'll never change it. Then they'll be like, oh, people are slow to get their gear on. Like, let's go on the bottom instead. It'll always be on the bottom, and you just have to catch up. So that is definitely a big adjustment.
All right. That made me think of something else. So what is the fastest order to keep your equipment in on deck so you can change it quickly? Is it like kickboard bottom, then fins and pull buoy, or?
Yeah, definitely kickboard bottom. I go kickboard bottom, and then I put my paddles, buoy, and band, if we have all that, on top. And for fastest arrangement of putting it on, I would say you should go ankle, band, buoy, paddles in that order.
Band, buoy, paddles in that order. Okay. Yeah. And then are you a guy who needs to like clear your goggles out at all when you're wearing paddles? That always gets me, because I'm always like clearing goggles out. I don't like having them on all the time. But then it's a nuisance. I'm taking them off and on and on.
I'm a big, get rid of the fog on my goggles guy. I wipe them about every time I have the chance. But one of the interesting things with Bob that has, hindered me with that is he makes us wear paddles with the ankle strap, or with the wrist strap on, which, a lot of people just wear the finger strap. And when you're with the finger strap, you can kind of take them on and off quickly. But with the wrist strap on, that definitely makes it a little bit harder.
So you mentioned some uncertainty about the volume moving to Texas and what that was going to be like. I feel like, though, we're seeing a little more of a trend towards some athletes having a lot more success with higher volume than what the shift was, right? There was a long shift towards, all right, we need more race pace, we need lower volumes, but now it's almost going back the other way a little bit. Do you feel like that is something that's happened with you, that this increase? Obviously, the times are kind of speaking for themselves to some degree, but I guess what are your thoughts on the volume shift and that being something that's more helpful for some athletes?
I think one of the biggest differences that I've noticed with the increased volume is I definitely feel more confident on the back end of my races. I've always been more of a back half swimmer, even since high school, but I definitely feel like I'm getting to the middle part of my races, and I feel like I really have an extra gear or two that I can kick into. And so I think that the combination of, having that broad base, we talked about it. And like, if you think it, like we've talked, all right, Bob's talked about it. It's like a triangle where you're trying to build the base as wide as you can with the aerobic. And then you're trying to build the peak up as high as you can with like the intensity. And so, you're maximizing the area by getting it as tall and wide as possible. And so I think Bob does a really good job of balancing a super, intensity based work, but also having enough of a base to really kick it in on the last 50, last 100, and really have confidence for those longer middle distance races.
Yeah, man, I'd say another gear, 47, 8 that last 100 of a 500.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Tell us about that split and maybe even more about that race. I know we touched on it briefly, but I mean, when you compare obviously how Leon did his 402, and yours it was almost opposite because he was going out insane. What was he like?
Yeah.
21-0. Yeah, just
Yeah, he was
Yeah, that's all
133 at the
underwater.
200.
yeah, exactly. All underwater. But what was he? 50 point or 51 the last 100? And you were 47-8. So talk us through kind of your race strategy and, like you said, what that last 100 was like.
Yeah. So, with my 500, I like to think of it as the first 100. I've swam enough 500s. I know exactly what the first 100 is going to feel like. You kind of float it. You're not burning your legs. You're really setting your tempo up. So, you think about what the pace you did for warm up, and you try and match that in that first 100. And the second 100, that was my slowest 100. And that was my only one that was 50 point. And I think that one, I was really just trying to stay long. And one of the things that I've tried to change since getting to Texas is kicking well in my races. Especially in all my 500s I swam here, I always joke to Bob, like, oh, I'll like build my legs as the race goes. And it always goes that I don't kick at all for the first 350, and then I kick really hard for the last 150. And I think that in my 404, I actually did a good job of building my legs. And so I think the second 100, I stayed on enough of a high pace to tee myself up to really start descending and attacking that last 300. And so I got to the 250 or 300 mark, and I felt really, really strong. And I thought that, you can really start descending these. You can really start pushing these hard. And I think just the first 300, I was able to get out. I was out 138, and then really kind of build my legs in that third 100. And then the last 200 or so really start hammering away at my legs, at my tempo, and at those walls.
Yeah, you mentioned the legs, and we had somebody ask us this question. This one was from Ben Schlahuber, who asked, how do you not overuse your legs in the 200 and the 500? And I think it's such a tricky balance is to figure out like what's comfortable versus what's running a little too hot. And that's the calibration that elite swimmers all have to play with pacing in general, but it applies to legs too. And with as much as you just talked about legs, I'm curious, like what you've learned about what that means for you, how to hone it in, how to dial it in, how to approach it, what you're thinking about.
Yeah. So I think, kicking and feeling like you're overburning your legs is definitely something that I have always been worried about. But I was talking to Bob about it before my races. Like, oh, I'm worried about burning out your legs. And he's like, I don't think I've ever seen you burn out your legs. And I was like, that's a good point. Like, I think I'm always on the more conservative end with my legs, and I'm always scared about burning them out. But especially when you see me like swim, like I really have like a very small kick, especially at the start. And I think obviously you can really only figure it out by reps. Just by getting into a race and figuring out, how can I, like, where can I start using my legs or building my legs? I would say the 2 free is honestly, a little bit easier. I think the 2 free, obviously if you're going to go out really hard, it's going to like the 2 free, it's easy to die if you really attack it. But I think the 2 free, if you just kind of have like a 6B kick on that first 100, you really build in the third and then get like into an 8 or an 8 or so on that last 50. In the 500, I think it's a little bit more complicated because I certainly can't have like my full kick for the whole race. I think especially when I swim, I kind of sometimes have a bad tendency of like crossing my legs over a little bit. And that's definitely something I've been trying to work on and making sure that my hips are staying square and flat while I'm still rotating my torso and my upper body. And so I think in the 500, ideally you can build them, every 500, but I think more realistically is the 200, you're not really using them that much. Then the next 150, you really have to start like deciding like, I'm going to use them more. And then the last 150, you have to really, start cranking them.
Yeah, 2 things you said that I wanted to call out. First, we kind of poked fun at Greg Paltrinieri for his crossover situation on the kick. So I've never personally understood where that comes from, but But yeah, I mean, it's a real thing that happens with elite swimmers. Is there anything, first of all, that you kind of like notice with that? Do you know when it's happening?
I now, like, I'm aware of it now, especially since being at Texas. I'm just become more aware of it because I've done a lot more kicking here. But I would say that I notice it. Like, I usually make a conscious decision to start kicking. Like, I know there's some guys who are leg driven, and when they're swimming freestyle, they will always be having like a really strong kick, and that's like their gift, is that they can have a strong kick for their whole race. But I usually, when I'm descending, like, whatever, if I'm doing a white set, I'll probably have a little bit of a crossover, and then on the pink and the red, when I'm starting to kick, I'll kind of get rid of it. I think my crossover comes from like an over rotation, is like when I'm getting onto my side, like if you're like trying to be like a pendulum and be on the same, like when I'm on my breathing side, I over rotate a little and then my legs cross over.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing I was thinking about is we talked to Kasha Wasik recently, elite sprint freestyler, and she swam the 200 freestyle at one of the World Cup meets, and like went out easy, but definitely died. And I just think it's so funny because you're talking about how like, oh yeah, I've never seen your legs die at all. Let them ride. And then, to say that to a sprinter where like they're definitely always running. And so for them to like hold it back and calibrate that speed over a 200 versus maybe like a 500 miler coming down to the two where you're just like playing with free money. Let's go. It's just like the mentality is completely the opposite. That like
Yeah.
you need to both do it, but the way that you can think about it is you have two different systems into the party.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, in the two free I swam at midseason, I was out very slow, and I had a really good last 100, but I think I was out maybe 44 high or 44 or 45 0 or something like that. And obviously, if you're a sprinter swimming the two free, you can't do it like that. You're probably not going to be able to, even if you take it out like that, you're still not going to be able to come back home. So it's a good point about two free is a very unique event in how many ways you can swim it.
Mm-hmm.
So 404 midseason. Now everyone's thinking, all right, what's going to happen at NCs? But before we get into like what's going to happen, I guess it's where do you see areas to improve? Is when I look at it, it's like, oh, if he can just get out a little faster, trust his legs a little bit more, come home the same. That's where he gets his time. Is that what you and Bob are thinking, or what are the spots to improve for you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely to get down to the 402 range. I'm not going to be able to come back much faster than 47. That's
45.
That's not realistic. So I think if I could get out, a little bit faster, a 38, that's a great first 200, but that's not exact. I mean, Leon was out 33. I'm guessing he was probably trying to go under 4 minutes and maybe felt for it. I haven't talked to Bob about it or anything, but that's what I would guess. I think if I could, float it out and keep all my get that second 50 or that second 100 under 50, and maybe keep descending it from there. I think that tees me up well. So I think probably those first two 100s are the easiest spot to find time.
So 7-second drop's not the new standard. Not going 357 here. How far away do you think we are from sub 4 minute?
I have no idea. I mean, sub 4 minute that's going to be an absurd time. I guess, is that holding 49 O's? I'm trying to do the math. I mean, it's faster than that, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
sub 48s, right?
Yeah. So, to be able to hold that for 5 100s, I mean, you're probably going to have to be able to take it out, whatever, 40, 45 something, I guess, or if not faster. You're going to have to be able to have such easy speed to get to whatever, say maybe 135. and then still have like an absurd back half. Like you're probably, yeah, whatever. I guess if you're Leon, you have to take it out 130. If you take it out a little bit easier, he goes 134, and then you swap his last 100 with my last 100. I guess that's how you do it. So your easy speed has to be, otherworldly, and to be able to, I mean, like we saw, Leon goes 128 in the 2 free. So in order to take your 5 free out in 133, your 2 free has to be absurd as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. And any time that hasn't been done before sounds absurd. It always sounded absurd until someone did it, and then until a bunch of other people did it, and then it became normal. And coming from somebody who has just had some substantial time drops, I'm sure if you asked, college, high school, or high school senior Luke at 412, like what are you gonna go? What's the career progression look like? The 404 sounded kind of absurd, at that point in time. There's a gap to get there, but you're always basing it in like where you are today, and like what's it going to take to get to that point. And now here you are on the other side of that with that much of a delta in a pretty short period of time. And I'm thinking, well, what's like the argument against you being able to you're less far away from sub 4 minutes than you were from what you were a couple years ago. So like, isn't it funny the way the mind works?
Right.
And that it's like, oh, I don't know, that would be kind of crazy to do it, and not like, yeah, I think like, just keep on tracking, like show up to work, keep doing the work. And yeah, I mean, who's to say that just because it hasn't been done before that Rex isn't capable of doing it? So
yeah, no, I mean, I think you gain that stuff from your like belief in a time from practice. If by my senior year I'm doing 500 pace and I'm going 48s and I feel good, I think I probably won't believe that that a 400 sounds absurd. So I think you have to believe in your mind that you can do it, and you build that belief through what you do in workout.
Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna transition to maybe the 400 IM now, because you also had a great 400 IM at the Texas meet, and now you have once again, not just a great freestyle training group, now a great IM training group about to be even better. So I guess how often are you training IM, and I guess how are you splitting your training up at the groups?
Yeah, so I'm in Bob's group every single day, and we probably do IM work Tuesday. So Tuesdays we always is a long course IM day. Wednesday afternoons is like typically a fast day, and that sometimes I have a chance to do backstroke on that, and not necessarily IM, but I'll have a chance to do backstroke. And then depending on the Friday afternoon or Saturday, sometimes I'll get to throw in some IM work on one of those. So I'm probably training for IM maybe 3 or 4 practices per week. And the IM training group is definitely just as absurd. I mean, when you think about how many guys we have under 2 minutes in the 2 IM, that's a really cool barrier to be under, and we have like 8 guys who can do it or something ridiculous. And especially long course, my IM is good, but my breaststroke definitely is a sore point in it, and I can definitely get exposed long course. Carson is amazing at breaststroke long course. Hubie is amazing breaststroke long course. Shane is great at it. Even David is very elite at breaststroke long course. So I think. And Chase is now here too, and his breaststroke is amazing, obviously. So I think my IM training, I think I'm very proud of my short course work, because like I can hang with them, and I think it's giving me a lot to realize, or a lot to think about long courses. How can I get my breaststroke to come along so that my 4 IM breaststroke or 4 IM long course can start contending with the guys that I'm training with.
You were talking about the Bob running one workout, and I was just thinking about our conversation with Ryan Murphy recently, because he was saying that Durden runs like an absurd number of workouts. And then does Bob have multiple groups, or when you say I'm in Bob's group, is everybody doing the same thing?
Yeah, typically if you're in Bob's group, yeah, we're all doing the same exact workout. I'm trying to think if there are times like when we have like the short course world's taper group, like he's running those differently, but obviously that's, they're getting ready for a meet. But yeah, typically if you're in Bob's group, you're doing, the exact same set. You might not be doing it all the same stroke. Like sometimes you might have the option to do different strokes, but you're doing, the same set.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. I did want to go back, like wind back the clock a bit, because you did transfer. You spent a year at Stanford. You came to Texas. It sounded like that. I mean, just from the outside looking in, you started training at Texas a bit. I think even before announcing the transfer. But like, and yet I'm also hearing in this conversation some about like, well, I wasn't sure about like how I might respond to the volume. That's new for me. So like I'm just curious about like some of the decision criteria. Obviously, like also from the outside looking in, you can see the results that came at ASU. They've been on the rise, still doing great under Herbie. Bob goes to Texas. Brings a slew of pros and adds on to an existing great foundation and a tradition of excellence there, with all the facilities to boot. Austin's a fun town, lots of draw. I can understand it. So from the outside, you can kind of see it, but I'm just kind of curious from you, like,
looks like Brian paused out there. Yeah. So,
sorry.
All right.
I
Sorry, you cut out there for a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think I get the gist of the question. Yeah, I mean, deciding to come to Texas was, easily the hardest choice I've ever had to make in my life. I love Stanford so much. I loved my freshman year there. I would go there again, in a heartbeat. I wouldn't change my freshman year at all. I love all the people there. I loved my school year there. And that's what made it so hard. It's not, you're saying goodbye to so much that you love. And it's scary to go to a place that's new. It's always scary to do stuff that's new. But when I first came to Texas to train for trials in the spring, I wasn't in the portal. I didn't think I was going to go to Texas. I just thought that having a chance to train under Eddie and get ready for trials after a not so superstar NCAAs was an amazing opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So coming and training with Eddie and Wyatt, and their guys while they're getting ready for trials is like, wow, like that's going to be super cool. And I can say I swam with Eddie. And while I was here, I was enjoying training. I loved it. The team was very welcoming. Even before I was in the portal, they were welcoming, which, that's not easy to do in an Olympic year. I think that speaks a lot about their character, in that they were willing to welcome a guy who was, maybe challenging for spots. In my head, that's what I thought I could have done. But I think that, being around, that team and once Bob got announced, there was a lot of excitement around Texas. It kind of felt like they were going to get catapulted up to the NCAA title conversation, inevitably. And I think having the opportunity to continue to train with these guys who just made the Olympic team. And, I trained with them and I was like, wow, it's super cool training with guys who have been where I want to go and have achieved achievements that I want to, that I want. Having that type of group is very unique to Texas. I mean, it's absurd how many whatever Olympians and internationally significant swimmers we have here. And also being able to train with Bob, whose resume speaks for itself, especially in events that I'm good at. I am in middle distance freestyle. I'm right in the sweet spot. So, I think those are the two biggest, drawing factors to come here. I wanted to pursue, my dream, to the best level that I could. And I thought that Texas would be the best place to do that.
Well, you're proving yourself right. Also, did anybody think that was an April Fool's joke like everybody else?
Did I announce that I was transferring on April 1st?
No. Bob did.
Bob did. Yeah.
Bob did.
Texas. Yeah.
I think people did. Yeah. I feel like I remember people being like, yeah, getting texts, like guys on the team getting texts being like, is this a joke?
What is this? Yeah, what is this? All right, man, we got a few rapid fire questions for you. What's the hardest race in swimming?
The mile.
Olympic gold or world record?
Olympic gold.
In what event?
Anyone you can get it in, but I'll say 400 freestyle.
There you go. What are you reading, watching, or listening to right now? What are you consuming nowadays?
I'm reading this book about gambling. It's called Secrets from a Life at Risk. It's about this guy who made this super complex formula, and he's telling all these stories about his crazy life in Vegas, and he came from poverty, and it's pretty cool. TV shows, I'm not really watching anything right now, so open for recommendations.
All right, there you go. I don't know. John's your guy on that, not me. Just kidding. John doesn't watch TV either. All right, if you only could keep 3 apps on your phone, which 3 are you keeping?
If I could keep 3 apps on my phone, let's see. I would keep. I'm a big solitaire player, especially on an airplane. I love playing solitaire. Sudoku is also a good time killer. I got a Sudoku app. And then I'll keep a social media. I'll say Instagram.
All right, those are 3. 2 games and Instagram. I love it. What is the best race that you ever saw live?
I saw Leon's 500 free live. That was pretty absurd. Trying to think of some other great ones I saw. I saw Katie Ledecky's 800 short course meter world record live. That one was pretty cool. Yeah, but it's probably got to be Leon's 500, I would say.
Yeah, that one was pretty epic. Although not far away now. What's one piece of swim equipment that you think is above all the rest? If you can only pick one and it's coming with you every time, what is it?
I would say the pull buoy. I love pulling.
Okay. Is there one quote or kind of insightful wisdom that you've picked up from a coach over the years that stuck with you?
I don't know if it's, insightful wisdom. But one of my mom's biggest philosophies is, finding stories and finding joy in, the everyday drums of training. I always call her and I'm like, oh my God, it's whatever, it's Wednesday. I can't believe I got to make it to Saturday. And she always tells me to write a calendar, start a calendar and write down a funny moment from that day. It doesn't have to be swimming related. It doesn't have to be school related. It could be whatever. And so I think that's probably the best thing that I've taken. That's definitely something I've applied to everyday life. I try to think of what's the best thing that happened to me today? What's the funniest moment?
I love that. All right. Short Course Worlds is coming up. Any predictions for the meet? What are you excited about?
I don't know about predictions, but I'm very excited for our group to go. I think we all, as a team, we had an amazing midseason. And the guys who are staying for Short Course Worlds, I'm hoping they're going to have a similar experience. Obviously, Carson and Shane swam great in their time trials at the meet, and Luke and Hubie raced well in their races at midseason as well. So I think all 4 of them, I'm expecting them to do well.
Hell yeah. All right, we got to finish with this one, especially since last time we did something on this, I think we influenced a social kick at Texas, maybe for Bobby the first time. But how often are you guys social kicking?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he maybe just did it after your guys' interview, just to say that he did it once. We do get it. So on Fridays, we do a combined practice with the women, and that is probably the most likely time where we'll get it. When it's just a Bob workout, I think we'll never get it. I'm not expecting it very much, but I think maybe on an occasional Friday afternoon.
Maybe post post big meet, we can work it into the schedule some more.
When you have a 200 easy at the end of workout, Bob is not a big fan of kicking on a board. I remember when I first got here, I did that, and he was he was joking with me about like, yeah, we can't do that anymore, and that's definitely something I miss is just floating like a 200 kick at the end of workout. Not even doesn't even have to be socially, but you have to swim at the end of workout.
Oh, God dang it. Socializing is for after. The fun is after. Rex, thanks for hanging out with us, man. It's good to get to chat with you. Excited watching you swimming and excited to continue watching you swimming. So enjoyed it. You're welcome back anytime. And thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Awesome. That's it for this episode of Social Kick. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode of Social Kick and you'd like to see more, subscribe to the channel. And we love talking swimming and we'd love to talk about swimming with you. So leave us a comment and we'll see you next time.